Cheers, y'all.
That's the beginning of a party right there.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast and video extravaganza known worldwide as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. Welcome to show number 236. We are back in the studio this week.
We're halfway to 300.
And halfway to 300, and it's nice to be here. My name is Cruze. My erstwhile co-host and friend is Ian Barry. We have nothing in common except that we both like to drink and smoke cigars, and you know what? That's enough.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's enough. That works for me. Nice to have you guys on with the show this week. We have a special guest in the studio today. He is making his return. We were talking just before we started and realized it's been since like 2019 that Robert Likarish from Ironroot Distillery was here. So, Robert, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Nice to have you on. It's good that we have you back because I think I've just about polished off all my Ironroot goodies.
Oh, mine's been gone.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, so you know how I do, right? I get to where there's only a little left, and then I start hoarding it. You know, so I've got all these bottles. My wife is, makes my wife crazy because I have all these bottles with just a little bit left in them in the bar. She's like, "We need space in the bar. Clear some of this stuff out." So
I do that myself. I get to that last little bit. I'm like, I'm gonna save that a little bit, and then I end up with a whole bunch of bottles to do that, and I just wipe them all out at once.
Yeah,
not like on the same night or anything.
Yeah,
but,
don't pour them together though. That generally isn't a good experience.
It's called blending whiskey. What are you talking about?
Experimental blending. I like it.
Yeah, it depends how much you've had as to how good that goes. Well, welcome to show number 236, as Ian said, halfway to 300, and we are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Great shirts on the web for cigar lovers and the people who love them. New designs available now for spring. Check them out. They started under $20. MyCigarShirts.com because cigars. Yes, I am really excited about today's show. Not only do we have Ironroot in the house, and we'll be tasting what looks at is it fair to say that some unopened bottles just look more delicious than others?
Yeah. Well, I think
that one looks delicious.
I think we're familiar with what's in that bottle. We know that's going to be delicious.
That's true. And you brought along some things. Now, we're going to be doing kind of like a deconstruction here. Is that what you're planning? Or
we are going to be tasting stuff that is all coming soon in the next year. So
okay. Wow. This is exciting.
Well,
I noticed when Mary set you up for the show, she mentioned that you had some new things coming. So that is very exciting. So Ian's making a mic adjustment there. That'll work well. Thank you. Well, this is exciting then. So we'll be looking forward to getting an early taster here. That's fantastic. So, big things coming on the show today. We'll be tasting some interesting beers. We're going to start with a stout, which we almost never do unless Ian brought the beers.
That feels backwards.
Well, it does, but actually it's the lowest ABV of the three we'll be trying. So we like to step up the ABVs, progressively as we go. But Ian, you're familiar with the quality of stout that Southern Star Brewing in Conroe, Texas
one of the best
right?
stouts in existence
is the Buried Hatchet.
Yeah. It is unbelievable.
Well, this is something, I don't know if it's new, but I just stumbled across it. It's their Pecan stout. It's called Metzli. And
I hadn't seen it.
It's not quite as potent as the Buried Hatchet.
So,
but then few drinks are, right?
It comes in at 9 or 10%. I can't remember which, but it's pretty high. Yeah. Like if you go out to the bar and you have 3 of them, you are already having a party.
Yeah. Well, this one comes in at 7, so we're starting at 7, and then we'll move up to 7.5 for a beer that we actually had on the show a couple of weeks ago, but we never opened because it was one of those shows where we had too much to taste. So
worst problem ever.
Yeah, the Little Beaver Brewery Wainbows Hazy Pale Ale makes its return this week, and it's been just sitting in my little beer fridge, getting even colder, so that's exciting. And then from Cascade Brewing, we'll step up into that 9 area and do their Primordial Noir 2017. It is a bourbon barrel Imperial red ale. And it's been aged in casks and has cherries and all kinds of other flavoring and stuff.
And then after the 9%, we're going to go to a big beer, right?
See, only you. I can start at 7, and you feel like we're not going big enough. That's only you. You're my only buddy that's like that. But anyway, but before we do that, I asked Adam to pour us. I have every now and then, I like to do a little surprise, and I don't tell you what it is. because I want you to taste it before you have a feel for
so
what
this is
exactly
a true blind
it is.
taste test.
So this is well, except for me because I know what it is, but I have not tasted it before. So I wanted you to taste this first, and then we'll tell you what it is. So this is something. I think the last time we did that, it was like, what was it, that Budweiser like special ale or whatever. This I can already tell you, this is a hard seltzer.
You can see that it smells a little funny too.
Yeah. Yeah, it does have an interesting nose, doesn't it?
Got that grapefruit really big on it.
It's a big grapefruity kind of thing, and there's a little weird funk to it.
Yes, so my take on it is I like the grapefruit up front. Not sure I like the funk at the end.
So it's a bitter kind of thing at the very end of it. But what I like about this is it doesn't have that crappy, sugary.
Right, you do skip that artificial sweetener taste.
That artificial sweetener sugariness, man, that turns me off to every one of those things.
But there is something in here that doesn't work for me.
The smell is not.
The smell is not
the
good
best.
at all. No, it really isn't.
It reminds me of my dad used to get grapefruit juice out of cans.
Oh, I remember that. It was in the little bitty cans, right?
The from concentrate ones.
Yeah, and when you would pour it out, it's kind of like pouring like a IPA that uses lots of hot powder, and like the last part of the pour is way thicker than the first part was,
exactly.
Even if you shake it up. Yeah. Well, Adam, why don't you hand me that can?
Can I guess before he does that?
Yeah. Before he hands it over.
Is this Topo Chico?
No, it's not. It is, in fact, the Montucky Cold Snack Seltzer. So I thought I would see.
They didn't change the can much.
No,
they changed the color
scheme. The color, but they've still got that stupid horse on there, and the mountain, and that's it.
Now we don't know if the horse is stupid. Like, we haven't actually interacted with scratched.
Okay, fair enough.
But man, Montucky Cold Snack is not a good beer.
It's not a good beer.
So
at
this
all.
is Montucky Cold, and it's got snack scratched out. Here.
Yeah, show that to
and
the camera.
And it just says hard seltzer.
Yeah, so
I will tell you, in the scheme of hard seltzers, this is one of the least offensive ones. Other than that, other than that little funk in there, like I'd rather have that funk in there than the.
It does say grapefruit, by the way. If
artificial.
On the side,
sweetener.
Yeah,
this is not very sweet
cold
either.
Hard seltzer grapefruit. No, it's not.
And I think that's in its favor. So this, I think, is far superior than the Montucky Cold Snack.
I would rather have this than the Montucky Cold Snack beer.
Yes,
for sure. And
have you had Montucky Cold Snack?
It has been a very long time since I've had a Montucky
Chris
Cold Snack.
Hart.
Yeah, it's Chris Hart, our buddy, our whiskey expert.
Our whiskey expert loves this beer and has tried to get us to drink it a couple times, and every time we're like, it's terrible. Like, and neither one of us likes it.
He kind of forgets that he asked us, and then he'll ask us, "Have you guys tried Montucky Cold Snack?" I'm like, "Yes." Remember, we hated it. Honestly, I'd rather have a Bud Light than a Montucky Cold Snack.
Yeah, I think I could go there with you. Like that Montucky Cold Snack is not good. This is better than I would have expected.
And it's still not. Now, my favorite hard seltzer is still the Oscar Blues, Dale's. Oscar Blues that makes Dale's Pale Ale.
Yeah.
They did one that was very grapey. Remember that we tried in our. We did a hard seltzer blind taste test, Robert, with like 21 hard seltzers. It was
good night.
It was kind of a clusterfuck.
I learned
really
something
was.
that day.
Yeah,
I really like
you
beer.
really like beer.
So. Oscar Blues is an interesting company because they also have an offshoot company called Reeb, which is beer backwards, and they're a bicycle company. They make like high-end mountain bikes and stuff.
They're just such an interesting company, and I love how so many companies, whether it's craft breweries or distilleries, have got these extra little angles to them that you might not expect. You know, it's pretty cool.
So they have such bikes as the Reeb. One of their bikes is called the Diculous.
The ridiculous. I get it. Yeah.
One of them is called the Squeeb because it's a full suspension, so it's a squishy reed.
Yeah. Squishy reed. I like it.
Anyway.
I like it. Well, that's that's pretty cool. So I thought we'd just try that sight unseen today and see what you think of it. But it's not as bad as the beer.
This is actually drinkable. It's better than the beer. We need to send a picture of that to Chris and say, hey.
Yeah. So I got
one-upped you.
My wife enjoys going to the beer aisle at the grocery store and seeing if she can put a 6-pack sampler together of stuff that I haven't had before. And so this came home in her latest 6-pack, and I was like, oh, I don't know. I said, I'm just going to save this for the show and take it in. So
not what I was expecting in the very first taste here today.
So I am intrigued because I've seen Topo Chico. Now Topo Chico is not all over the world. That's really regional as far as I know.
Well, but in Texas, I would say
Texas and southern states have
it probably is the best-selling mineral water in our area.
And so it's just carbonated water, and sometimes
really
I had one earlier with a little twist of lime, and it's fantastic. But they make a hard seltzer now, and I haven't tried it yet, but I've seen that it exists.
I was on an airline several years ago and picked up the little in-flight magazine and thumbed to the back, and Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top had given them a drink recipe for what he called the Gibbons, and it was Pura Vida tequila and Topo Chico, and I thought, boy, that is just so like perfectly Texas, just like because they're such a Texas band, and it also had like a jalapeno and a little bit of lime and some other things, but
kind of a twist on a ranch water.
But it was. I actually made one. It was pretty good. It's pretty good. So also coming up on the show today, we will do, of course, drinking news. Our drinking news teaser headline today is "Let's Go to the Tape." I would always be disappointed if you hadn't brought the ukulele.
I could bring a guitar, but the ukulele is just more fun.
There's something about it just kind of seems to fit drinking news the best,
yes.
I think. Also, we will talk a little bit about a couple of different items that are in the news, including, I've been trying to get to this, it's now what? June, and I've been trying to get to this article about Hop Culture's 20 best breweries of 2020. So I think if we don't get to it today, I'm just going to delete it from my list of stories because it's going to be too old.
It's going to be obsolete by next month.
Exactly. So
because we're working on 2021 list.
Exactly. So we'll try to get to that today. We also will be going through a new list that just came out this week from our buddies at Cigar Aficionado magazine, and these are my favorite lists of theirs because whenever they do, their top cigar lists and stuff, that's all like well and good, but their top 5 is always like 3 Cubans and a $28 Padron.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I get it. These are good. But this list is their 10 top cigars under $10.
Now, see, that's more interesting.
Yeah, to me it is.
Because you gotta be selective.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you go spend $28 on a cigar,
it
really better be good.
Yeah. There's no real room for error. With that kind of a spend,
right.
And but yeah, if you can find a great cigar under $10, wow, that's a thing to talk about. So we'll share that list with you today, and it's a pretty interesting list. I glanced at it; it's not necessarily the usual suspects, so it's going to be kind of cool. So we'll share that as well, and if we have time, we'll get to the rum. Well, I'm trying to find the right thing so I say this right. The San Francisco World Spirits Competition, pretty big deal, named their top rums. So we'll go through the rum thing as well. Have you guys ever thought about doing a rum? I know you're whiskey centric, but there are some distilleries that will also do a rum too. Would you ever consider that?
We've toyed around with the idea for many years now. I think we. Right now, it's probably a couple of years off still. It's one of those things that we like really diving deep in understanding like historical production before we take it on ourselves.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Instead of just like, okay, let's slap this together. Yeah,
let's give it a shot.
That would be me. I'd be just like, okay, what are the ingredients? Okay, let's do it. But
you got to go out into the high seas and be a pirate for a year.
Yes, you
really.
do.
Which I feel like that's something I should do.
Well, just so you know, we are continuously in search for the answer to the age-old question. And if you guys ever do distill a rum and you find this answer, we would love for you to come on the show and share it with us. And that question, of course, is how do you deal with a drunken sailor? Yeah. So we'll try to figure that out. Ian, I know you've I haven't seen you since last week's show. Have you had an opportunity to smoke anything interesting this week?
I have, and as soon as I figure out where I wrote it, there it is.
Good to know.
I'll let you know all about it.
All right, tell me.
So I went by Casa this morning. Oh, there we go. So trying to get my keyboard out of the way there. And picked up a few things, and they didn't have anything new that was reaching out to grab me or anything, so I just kind of wandered through. and picked out a couple things that I've seen but haven't tried. And I decided to smoke today the Rocket Patel 20th anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Now, I had to go back into my notes and see, have I done this one before?
He's
I
about to
didn't think
release
so.
the 30th, you know.
I know. I thought that would be kind of interesting. So the 20th anniversary, this is the Toro 6x52 box press, Honduran wrapper, binder and filler are Honduran and Nicaraguan. The appearance on this, medium brown with a slight reddish hue on the cigar head. Black and gold 20th anniversary label. It's a really nice looking label, and a footer with the word natural on it. So this is the 20th anniversary natural. And I don't know a whole lot about them. I didn't read up very much on them, so I don't know if they have a couple different ones or if there's just is a natural.
I think there is just a 20th anniversary.
So I thought so too, but you never know. So the pre-light sniff. Oh wait, sorry, I'm going too fast. The smooth, the tobacco, the wrapper was smooth overall and leathery to the touch. Not very firm overall. It was kind of a squishy cigar by feel, which makes me think it's going to smoke pretty fast.
Right, it's going to be a little loose and smoke a little fast.
It didn't.
Oh.
It actually smoked very well overall and took over an hour. The pre-light sniff, earthy and sweet leather, some cookie dough, kind of fermented hay, mocha, a little clove spice right off the foot of the cigar. It was very interesting, very sweet kind of overall theme to this as far as the nose and the taste went. The pre-light draw, I used a clip. It was effortless draw, creamy sweetness, fruity, a little gingerbread, iced tea, those kind of fermented tobacco noses that you get. The initial light, spicy tea leaf, pepper, cedar, leather, earth was what I was getting off of that. The first third, cedar and nutty, creamy sweetness, kind of like a powdered sugar or cookie dough kind of thing. Retrohale was sweet and cedar with a touch of pepper. Flaky ash, perfect burn. You will be proud of me. I did not flick any ash on myself.
Your shirt looks wonderfully clean, so it's good to know.
I recognized the ash was flaky early on, and I just didn't try to make it a long ash.
Good, yeah.
The second third of this, coffee and campfire kind of developed throughout here. I don't know why I put an E on the end of the word develop. Medium strength, medium minus strength. It wasn't a very big strength cigar, strength-wise. Pleasant, sweet, nutty retrohale about the middle of the cigar. Flaky ash, good burn. The last third of this, coffee, nutty, cedar, pepper ramps up a little bit. Sweetness persists throughout. A slight mintiness kind of developed towards the end of it. Tangy leather on the lips, flaky ash, good burn. Price to quality is an interesting thing on this cigar.
Yeah, this isn't too cheap, is it?
It's $12.85.
Okay, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, it's still pretty
But you still
pricey.
bumped over that $10.
It was a good cigar.
Yeah.
It wasn't $13 good.
Interesting.
So I give it a 4.
Okay.
But I do recommend you try it. It's a good cigar. It just, if it was a $8 to $10 cigar, would have easily gotten a 5. But it was just a little more pricey than what I thought.
Your expectation level's a little higher.
It's tough at that price range because there's so many cigars that meet or exceed that price range.
Absolutely.
Easily on the scale. So it gets a 4, and it's not because it's a bad cigar. I just think it's about $3 more than what I would have wanted
So
to
your
spend on it.
suggestion might be try it, but maybe don't go crazy and buy a whole bunch of them at that price.
If you like a sweet cigar overall, especially, I highly recommend you try it because it might end up being someone's favorite cigar.
Right.
It was really good.
Yeah,
I just wanted a little more for that price.
I understand. All right, well, I'll tell you about my cigar when we come back in the next segment. Plus, we're going to start doing a little whiskey tasting. Robert, are we going to start with your Promethean, or are we going to start with one of these newer things you have?
We're going to start with Promethean and move our way up from there.
Okay, fair enough. And we'll also start with some beer. In our first tasting here for beer, the Southern Star Metzli, the Pecan Stout. We'll be getting into that.
Continue with beer?
Well, tasting new ones, this will be the first segment, unless you want to count the Montucky Hard Seltzer. We'll be right back at Smoking and Toasted.
That was a fun spread.
Yeah. Welcome back. Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Great shirts for cigar lovers on the web, and new designs available now. Check them out, MyCigarShirts.com, because...
Cigars.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to offer just a quick public apology for last week's show.
Oh, you're apologizing for
as I
last
went
week's
on
show?
there. Well, I'm not apologizing for anything I said or did.
Okay,
I did,
that
however,
wouldn't be like you.
I did, however, neglect to pour our producer any drinks last week.
Oh,
and
so
I realized that.
Well, we'll have to make up for that this
so
week.
I owe him beers.
Yeah. Speaking of which, before we get started, Adam, grab the mic there. I think we've mentioned this once before, but many people who are regular Smoking and Toasting fans and know of Adam through the show may not realize that he has his own podcast, too. Now, it's not about drinking, although I suppose it could be, but it's called Tom and Adam's...
Tom and Adam's Midnight Variety Hour.
Midnight Variety Hour. And you do once a week, right?
Yeah, we do once a week. Try to release it around midnight on Fridays. So if y'all want to check us out, we talk about anything from UFOs to chimeras to philosophy, history.
It's just like you never know what the topic is going to be. It's awesome.
We've had history professors, PhD doctors, and mindfulness teachers, and whole bunch of crazy stuff. So
yeah.
We also talk about sports. So anyone interested in football, basketball, talk about a whole bunch of stuff. That's why it's Variety Hour. So yeah.
They've actually asked me to be a guest at some point in the future on the show.
Yeah, we'll get you on there for sure.
And I told them that I would do it, but I can't do a podcast unless I'm drinking. So I mean, it's just like, we've done 236 of these now, and I've been drinking in all of them. So
Tom is our co-host, and he's been very fond of popping the can open before the show starts. So we'll do that little crack. So that'll make you feel at home if you hear that.
Perfect,
right?
perfect. I will be looking forward to it. Why don't you pop that one open and pour while I tell you about the cigar that I had this weekend.
Go ahead.
I bought this about a month ago, I would say, at the Humidor in Specs down in Midtown at the big Spec store there. And I looked at it, didn't recognize it, and I thought, okay, this will be something fun and new. It is the East India Trading Company Red Witch Robusto. So I thought, okay, this looks really interesting. It was very nicely box pressed. I thought, we'll do this. We'll check it out. And then as I pulled it out of the humidor this week, because I was like, okay, I haven't done this one yet. Let's do this. It was only as I started looking up information on it that I realized that it's made by Gurkha. So I got a Gurkha that I didn't know was a Gurkha. It looked great, but we've made no secret here on the show of our overall disappointment with Gurkha over the past couple of years. Although, in fairness, it does seem like they've gotten better.
But our disappointment with them, I just want to point this out to everybody, our disappointment with them is never with the flavor of the cigars. The cigars taste fine.
Right.
But they just fall apart.
There was a Gurkha that I had reviewed on the show. We should go back and find those pictures. It was the closest thing to the, from the cartoons, the exploding cigar.
It looked like that. It was
really
crazy.
Looked like it had blown up from the center. It was probably the biggest cigar disaster ever in anything that I've reviewed for the show. So I come at this now with a little trepidation, right? So I'm, knowing though that Gurkha has gotten better over the past couple of years, construction-wise, I was really interested to see what I would think of the Red Witch. The Robusto was beautifully box pressed, had a dark brown wrapper, what appeared to be really solid construction. The wrapper is Ecuadorian Habano, the binder's Dominican, and the filler tobacco is Nicaraguan. This should be right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So let's see how they did. The pre-light was earthy with a bit of leather and tea leaf. I used a punch, and I was encouraged because when I used the punch on the top of it, the head of the cigar did not crack. Sometimes that happens, even if you tried moistening it a little bit. So that was good. I lit it up. Nice little Nicaraguan pepper blast on the first few puffs. And then the Red Witch settled down a bit. It had a real distinct kind of a English breakfast tea note to it, which I like.
And most Gurkha cigars are not on the strong side either.
No.
Medium is about as strong as they generally get.
Right, but you got Nicaraguan tobacco in this, so I'm thinking maybe it'll be a little bit stronger. But the English breakfast tea note was actually the dominant flavor for the first half inch or so, along with just kind of a basic tobacco vibe, which that might sound like it's a negative, but it's not to me. I mean, I like that sort of basic sort of Cuban tobacco kind of a vibe. I worked my way across the first third. I got a little bit of leather, some nice creaminess. The burn was good, solid ash. My only complaint as I smoked this was the occasional, very temporary appearance of kind of a burning paper note. It would come, and just when I would be going, then I'd puff it again, and it was gone. So it wasn't like something that really spoiled the enjoyment of the cigar, but I was kind of like on the lookout for it, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Let's see what happens with this. And I had not ever noticed that in a Gurkha before. But this one at least was burning well, so okay. You know what I'm talking about when I say
Yeah, you got to take it where you can get it.
yeah. You know what I'm talking about though. Like if you ever like should have taken the cigar band off
I've
by
done
now,
that.
but you haven't, and the burn line gets down to it, and it just starts to torch a little bit of the paper. It was that kind of a flavor, but again, it didn't last. It just kind of.
Now, you didn't have a footer on the cigar you forgot to take off, did you?
No, and in fact, I was still well away from the cigar band, which is a fairly large band, but it was at about the halfway point where it would have contacted it, and I wasn't there yet. So anyway, the second third didn't change much. Tobacco, tea, leather, and pepper, all of which would have been outstanding, except that little burning paper note recurred. I'm halfway through the cigar. Maybe it's happened like 3 times. So just enough to kind of keep me from being able to fully enjoy the other flavors as much as I wanted to. Pepper ramped up a little bit around the midpoint, which was fine with me. It was really a kind of a solid medium in terms of strength. And all the way through the final third, the flavors in the Red Witch didn't change too much. Tea leaf consistent all the way through. Black pepper, tobacco, a little bit of creaminess as well. The biggest positive surprise for me was the construction. The burn was not razor straight, but it was reasonable, and it didn't need tending even once. There was a nice volume of smoke all the way through. No construction issues of any kind on a Gurkha.
That's a big positive.
So right, so so I'm wanting to wave the flag for this, right, and go okay. The 2 main things the Red Witch had going for it were the excellent construction and a reasonable price. It's a $6 to $7 cigar, so it's not like a really expensive one. And for the most part, I really enjoyed the cigar. I'm inclined to think that the burning paper note was, I don't know, maybe a fluke. It never stayed around for more than a puff or two when it appeared. I probably should give this a 4.5 on price to quality. But to be honest, I was just so impressed to smoke a Gurkha with no construction issues that I'm going to be generous. I'm going to say a 5. At $6 to $7. If this has been a $10 cigar, I wouldn't have felt comfortable rating it quite that high with any issues. But you know what? The little paper smell I'm talking about, it didn't keep me from enjoying the cigar because it was brief and it went away. So yeah, there you go. East India Trading Company. Now, here's a footnote to the whole thing. When I went on to research this, and I was looking to see if anybody else had picked up, that might have talked about the cigar, had picked up on the paper note. I didn't find anybody else that mentioned it. What I did find, however, was that the cigar's already been discontinued.
Really?
So Gurkha has a potential winner on their hands, and they're not going to make it anymore. Whatever. So anyway, but they have some at Specs in Midtown, and they're not expensive. So if you're in the greater Houston area, check them out. I think you can still find some of them online from the existing stock. But anyway, there's your report on East India Trading Company, Red Witch. And by the way, Red Witch, it was named after apparently the East India Trading Company, which I read, if it were still around today, would be worth like something like $70 billion or something because of how dominant a thing it was back in the day. But I guess the Red Witch was one of their flagships. So that's what it said.
Yeah, and just for those of us catching up on it, our price to quality scale is a 1 to 10 scale, 5 being you get exactly what you pay for. You go a little above that, you're punching above the pay grade, and a little below, you're getting a little less than what you expected to pay for.
So I felt like it was worth 6 to 7. So there you go. It's a 5.
There you go.
So very good. Robert Likarish is our guest, and we have poured him a little bit of this beer as well. Well, now you're familiar with the Southern Star Brewery in Conroe, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So we talked about their Buried Hatchet. Ian and I would both tell you one of our favorite stouts that I think we've ever had.
Buried Hatchet is as good as the Founder's Breakfast Stout. It's as good as anything out there.
And you mentioned the Black Crack, which is their
Barrel aged.
Yeah, barrel aged. So that's a big thing as well when you can find it. This one, I was seeing it for the first time. Have you seen this beer before?
I've never seen this can before.
All right, so this is the Metzli. It's their pecan stout.
It's interesting because it's got kind of like an Aztec kind of
Right.
thing going on.
I'm assuming that Metzli is some sort of Aztec or
and then but it's a robot dressed up in it doing some kind of
a funky dance there. Yeah.
It's interesting.
All right. Well, what do you think? Have you sampled this yet, Ian?
I have. I want to hear what Robert says about this.
Robert, you've had a sip. Go ahead.
So for me, I think you mentioned pecan. I think the nuttiness comes out quite a bit in it,
Especially on the finish.
that it has a drier finish than what I was expecting going into it, and I think that's coming a little bit from the pecan. But you got a nice sweetness. It's not heavy on the palate by any means, which again, some of the stouts can get syrupy and heavy, especially some of the barrel aged stuff.
I love that.
Yeah.
Of course, you like it to be chewy.
You want that thickness to it. So I think if you're going into it expecting like something heavy, like to really hang out on the palate, that's not what this is more Guinness, where it's a little bit more lighter style stout.
A little more carbonation than something like the Buried Hatchet. Yes.
So, a couple quick things. You mentioned the whole memory thing earlier. When I put this to my nose, and I took my first sip. Pecan, yes. Pecan shell, definitely.
Yes, definitely pecan shell.
There was a store right up the road from where I lived in Liberty, Texas. Okay, called Louis. This was kind of a little local legendary store. If you walked in the front, it's right on Highway 90. If you walked in the front, you could get basically your cigarettes, all your convenience store needs. You go a little further back and you get some groceries. When you get to the middle, you can cash your checks and everything else. And if you pass the check cashing booth, then you've got clothing store, basically.
It's a little bit of everything.
An outdoor store. You can buy your cast iron skillets and things like that. You can buy camping needs and things like that. And then as you keep going back, then you could buy your guns and your worms and your fishing rods and it was full.
It's important to know where to get your guns and your worms.
This store was not that big.
Yeah.
Okay. It just had everything, right?
Kind of crammed into one space.
It was there forever.
And so the pecan reminds you of Louis?
So right outside the back door, because I'd always walk up from the coming away from Highway 90, I'd always walk up and go in the back door, the sporting area of it. But right outside the back door, they had all these big machines that would shell pecans, and that's what it smelled like when you walked by.
Right.
It had that
a little bit of that pecan shell.
It's the pecan shell, and that dryness that you're talking about is like if you've ever eaten fresh pecans, you get just a little bit of that shell. It's like an immediate astringency on the and dryness in the mouth, and that's what this has.
Right. It's a very dry finish.
Yes. It's very dry, and it's pecan, and it's nice, and it's interesting because it's not, like you said, it's not as big and round and big a mouthfeel as I expected. It's probably a hair more carbonated than I actually would like, but
I would
at the same time, this is a 5% beer as well.
Is it 5? I thought it was 7.
Alcohol, 5%.
5%. So that's why we went early with this, because
and it's a very light. If you want a stout, and I'm using the word stout in air quotes here, if you want a stout that's light and easy to drink, this is a crushable stout.
If you're at a pool party and you're just hanging out having beers with friends, but you want to drink a stout instead of a lager or something light, this is one you can do.
Well, this has the same alcohol content as many lagers and pilsners and things like that. So you could be drinking big brown beer, and it's quite dark. Big brown beer at the same crushable 5%.
I will admit, when I first pulled it out, I was thinking it was a porter, and I was like, no, this is actually a stout. So very interesting.
It's got pecan and coffee notes.
It does.
There's a lot of that coffee kind of note to it.
And like
as
you
well.
said, that dry finish is just kind of what makes it unique, I think, and remarkable.
This would be amazing with dessert, like like pecan pie or
Something that's a little sweeter.
cheesecake, because it's not a
Yeah.
super sweet beer either.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of that pecan shell bitter vibe on the finish. So
Summer stout a thing?
a summer stout. I don't know,
I
but,
think we
but
might
they
have
may
just
have
hit
started
one.
it. Yeah,
might
I
have
would
just-
say this would qualify.
There's
right?
also a little brighter overall flavor in this. There's a little tanginess to it stuck in there somewhere. I'm not sure what it is. What does it say on the can? It says, according to Surgeon General, women should not drink alcoholic beverages. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with it, but, but it's got a little tanginess to it.
You always stop there. So it sounds like every week on the show you're saying that the Surgeon General thinks that women just shouldn't drink. You never go on to the rest of the warning.
I think we all know that what that sentence
I
is.
think we probably do. So Robert Likarish is our guest. Robert is with Ironroot, and you guys have obviously been putting out some really quality juice for a while now. Remind us when you started the distillery.
We started back in 2014.
Okay.
So we're, I guess, the kind of second wave of Texas distilleries.
Right. Now, I was going to say for 2014, it wasn't this, it was definitely not this current wave.
Right.
Because there's been a lot in the past several years, especially the last year or two before the pandemic, we saw just a ton of new things opening up and it becoming almost, almost the hip thing to do, to open your own distillery. It's like,
Oh, I've got one of those too.
Yeah, I've got one. But you guys have been at this for a little while before it was quite as quite as in vogue as it is now. So, at what point? I know you said you got several new things coming. At what point do you look at your basic, outlay of products and go, okay, it's time to introduce, not just we've come up with something, but like it's time from a marketing standpoint to introduce our next thing? Is it?
I guess that for us, it's never been driven by that, just because there's so much ADD by my brother and myself.
Yeah.
That we're always playing around. Again, we do a lot with the different heirloom corns, and Mom, she's got the green thumb, so she's always growing new varieties, always playing around. So every year we're laying down.
So you guys are actually testing out corn that your mom grows herself.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's so
That's
cool.
fantastic.
That's so cool. I love it. Well, I was just looking at this bottle of corn here, and I'm like, I bet it makes some great whiskey, but I also almost wouldn't mind putting it in the microwave and see if we could pop it. That looks delicious.
That one actually will pop if you put it in the microwave.
I love it. So she has her own little farming plot where she's able to try growing different varieties.
She
right?
just started digging up ground all around the distillery and just started planting corn all around the distillery.
Awesome. So awesome. I love it. So like she might like discover new strains and new varieties all the time, and you guys can check them out.
That's exactly what we're looking for. Again, I think this really started as a kind of discovery process from us from the very beginning, just because so many of these varietals have not been distilled into whiskey. And through kind of our years of exploration, we've found that some are very similar to each other, and then there's some that are just way out in left field that tend to be the really fun ones. Like we've got one that's actually a spicy corn, which is kind of a weird thing to say about just corn naturally being spicy.
Right, yeah. You assume you're going to put like peppers and spices into it and serve it up if you're going to call it spicy corn. But if it arrives that way, that's pretty cool.
It's kind of fun. And it's a lot of what's kind of, we've based a lot of what we've done on, just coming from that French methodology, playing around with different varietals of, grapes, and then take that over into corn and barley and
In
wheat
such a
and rye now.
beautiful Texas way, in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Ma comes in and goes, "Look what I done grew."
Boys, I got me some new corn.
And you're like,
We're
"Well, put it
totally-
in a pot."
Yeah, we're totally
it
being
up.
disrespectful of his mom. We shouldn't do that.
No,
But-
she's wonderful. We've met her a couple times,
Yes,
actually.
yes.
She's absolutely wonderful.
So she can hold her own. You don't have to worry about her.
yeah. So tell me about the mash bill. The Promethean, obviously, this is something you guys have been making for a while.
Exactly.
And tell me about the mash bill for this. What kind of corn are you using in this?
So this is going to uses all of our core mash bills, but it focuses more on the flint corn that we use and our low rye mash bill. It does have a little bit of the purple corn, a little bit of Bloody Butcher in it as well. This one it's a Texas only product, so this is one of the bourbons that we only do for Texas, and it's right at that 100 proof. It's all American oak, so it's give me that sweeter, more vanilla kind of up front, and then has some darker kind of notes on the back end. We love it. Again, we use it a lot at the distillery for cocktail making. for old fashions, just because it's strong enough to really stand up in those sorts of cocktails, but not so strong that it's going to overtake everything.
Cool. Well, let's have some.
All right.
Yeah, I was going to say the only problem I see with that whiskey is that it's not open.
You know, I've noticed a number of whiskeys have that problem, but thankfully it's one that can be addressed and fairly easily. So that's always good to know. Robert, while you're pouring, tell me about how you guys during the pandemic.
That was awesome.
That was great. During the pandemic, how did it affect you guys from a business standpoint and being able to get your whiskey? Obviously, so many bars were closed that a lot of what you might have had going on normally in terms of getting poured, on locations was being curtailed. How did you guys handle all of this, and how did you get through it?
We had probably the craziest year that we've ever had on record for us. So in February, the Harbinger, the 115 proof bourbon that we do, was named Best Bourbon in the World by Whiskey Magazine.
That's so cool.
That's
and we talked about that on the show.
Yes.
It was we took great pride in being able to say, hey, we had them on. Remember? yeah, we loved it. Yeah, we're not so dumb after all.
And so that just kind of blew everything up
Right.
at once. And
right. So it helped kind of fuel interest in the whiskey during a time when you might have otherwise expected more of a downturn because of what was going on with the pandemic. Right?
Exactly. And so, I tell people all the time, if the pandemic had happened 2 years earlier, we would have been out of business. We would not have survived, just because, a lot of when you're starting up a distillery, I'd say for the first, 6 years we were in existence, we were at liquor stores every Friday, Saturday, sometimes on Thursday nights, every day, tasting people, because that's how you get out there to meet
and
people.
get people to try it for the first time
Exactly.
that have never tried. Yeah, because I was going to say you walk up to the little tasting thing and you get a little sampler of this. It's like, ooh, okay, maybe I'll buy something that I wouldn't have necessarily just picked up off the shelf, without knowing anything about it.
Exactly.
You got to feel for how it tastes. So
You know how when I don't know if you enjoy chocolate very much.
oh no, not at all.
Most people don't, of course. Right? That's being silly. But do you know how? So after you eat a really good piece of chocolate, and you have that lingering aftertaste that you just sit and enjoy. Mm-hmm. This doesn't taste like chocolate, but it has that kind of lingering aftertaste.
It does. It's very pleasant to just sit and kind of
It's a
bask in it.
sweet corn and vanilla and a lot of mineral water. I love how clean this tastes.
Right. It definitely has that minerality on the finish too.
And it just leaves this beautiful sweet finish lingering. It's absolutely wonderful. And I can tell you as a statement of fact that cigars and this whiskey love each other.
Oh yeah, and that's a very wonderful thing. Just a very wonderful thing. But it makes sense, the fullness of the flavors, but there's no flavor that kind of shocks the palate.
Right.
It all just kind of rolls together real nicely. And then if you think about puffing, just a nice medium-bodied cigar along with this, it just feels like the perfect addition. So.
What is a bottle of this selling for right now off the shelf?
Generally right around between $40 to $45 typically.
Worth every
depending on the
penny.
store.
I was going to say that's a fantastic
that's a
price
steal.
for something of this quality, and it's 100 proof. So
And how many expressions do you have out right now?
So we've got 3 core expressions that we do. The Harbinger XC, which is the 90 proof. We have Promethean, that's 100 proof, and then the Harbinger 115. And then we'll do special releases beyond that, like the Hubris, which is the corn whiskey, or Icarus, which is the corn whiskey that we age in old Scotch barrels and port casks. That's kind of smoky and really fun.
When we first met you, was at the World of Whiskey, was at 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about that earlier. You had 3 expressions, I think. You had
that's right,
Harbinger, you had Promethean, and you had the
Hubris. Yeah.
Yes.
The big corn whiskey at the end on that one.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
And we absolutely loved it.
now, as the show progresses here, we're going to try several other things. I notice you've got them labeled on the top here. Are these going to be limited releases, or are they? Is it possible that some of them would become additions to the core line?
So the very first one that we're going to taste is going to be called Saint Sally. So it's actually a collaboration brand that we do with a gentleman named Chris Trevino. He's the Liquor Hound on YouTube.
Okay.
And it's actually a blend of different whiskeys, including ours, that we do finishing in Armagnac, or there's another one that's going to be a port and cognac, and all of those are going to be full line available all the time whiskeys that are going to be coming.
Cool.
And the last two are going to be special editions that we'll be doing. Again, generally once a year or so, they'll be kind of released.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to getting to those. And also we have, as I think we mentioned, more beer on the way, including the Lil Beaver Brewery, Wainbows, Hazy Pale Ale, and the Primordial Noir, the Bourbon Barrel Imperial Red Ale from Cascade Brewing. So let's take a quick break, and we will return. Smoking and Toasting, your show that's all about craft beer, fine spirits like this, and hand-rolled cigars. We'll be right back.
So good.
Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our show is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Show number 236. By the way, our bumper music, I feel like every now and then we should tell people what those are, because the bands and the artists are so kind as to allow us to use that music, because unless they allow it, we get flagged by YouTube and all that stuff. But all the music we use on the show is music that we have permission to use. And that little guitar riff there on the beginning of that's from a band from Austin, Texas. I think they relocated to Austin from like Milwaukee or someplace. But they are now in Austin. They're called Squint, and you should check them out because they're a good, fun rock band. You'll enjoy them. So, welcome back, and we are in the studio with Robert Likarish. Robert is, the big cheese at Ironroot Distilling. And Robert, what is your official title? So I get it right. Big cheese. It probably doesn't say that on your card, right?
I know my brother calls me the Glad-hander. So I think
okay.
He's the head distiller. I'm technically the president, but no one elected me, so I don't know if that's.
My guess is that you are the guy that enjoys coming out and talking about the whiskey and doing things like this, and he's probably the guy that would rather be in the laboratory.
Yeah, he's the tinkerer for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Thank you for
that's
saying laboratory.
isn't that a great word?
That's great.
It's a great word. It's how Vincent Price says laboratory, laboratory, and it's just an awesome word. So you mentioned that several of the things that we're going to taste today here are things that are coming that are not out yet. Is this one of those now that's not out yet?
This is coming in July this year. So we've got.
So that's only a month away now.
Yeah, we're as soon as the bottling line is up and running, this will be in its full official bottles and everything. So it's pretty exciting right now.
This smells like cinnamon and corn and mineral water.
Ooh, it certainly does. I like it already on the nose. And this is a collaboration you mentioned with a popular whiskey guy on YouTube, correct?
Correct. Chris Trevino, he lives out in Fort Worth. He's one of those guys that has one of those crazy collections of whiskey. 2,500 bottles.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at some point you get. See, my friend Warren Christensen is like that with wine. He's got so much wine that he had to rent a climate-controlled storage facility to house his wine. I'm like, Warren, if you stopped buying wine now, there's more here than you could drink for the rest of your life. And he's like, and? I was like, okay, I get it. So I'm guessing that he's probably a bit like that.
He's definitely one that he started collecting back in like 2005, and so he's back in the day he was able to get some really crazy bottles, like stuff from 1914, stuff that's like non-release stuff out of Kentucky before Booker's was a product. They just gave it away, and he's got bottles from that era of
the
Booker's.
good old days. I love the good old days. So tell me,
Remember
when you're collaborating with someone like that, what do they bring to the table? Obviously, the ability to promote it, but in terms of the juice itself, what do they bring to the table?
So Chris has one of the best palates of anybody that we've kind of run across over the years, and he's always someone that we've wanted to work with on a project just because the historical knowledge he has about whiskeys from the 40s and 50s and 60s and the ability to taste all those. It was kind of the thought for St. Sally was start to try to bring back some of those older flavor profiles and then also kind of play around with some special finishes that mean a lot to us at Ironroot, which is, again, we have this, I mention all the time, the French connection. And spending time over there, we fell in love with some of the a little bit more esoteric style of products that come over there. And so Armagnac, which is becoming a little bit more popular now, is one of those things that we fell in love with from the very beginning. And so this is supposed to showcase a lot of those Armagnac type flavor profiles, because we use ex-Armagnac casks to kind of blend everything into. But we're able to pull out, because of the type of cask that they use in certain Armagnacs, to pull out some older flavors that you don't get in modern bourbons typically.
Well, this is you've got some of the flavors that you do. I mean, it's got like that cinnamon blast, which is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
This has definitely got a cinnamon blast, but so a couple things. First off, this is not shy on the heat. And it's right there in the
not at
middle
all.
of the tongue.
What is the proof on this?
This is 100 proof too, so you're going
Wow.
the
So-
same exact proof between the two.
But
it's-
it feels stronger, doesn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
It's treated differently. It's a little stronger tongue. There's also a hint of leather kind of in the very back of this that I get that's real nice and interesting on the aftertaste as well.
I'm really envious of guys like you were talking about, Trevino, that has, such a great palate. Because when I talk about my palate, I'm reminded of this Peanuts cartoon that I saw once with Linus, and he's sitting at his desk in class, and he says, "I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it." And in the last panel, he looks like kind of at the camera and says, "It's art appreciation class." And that's kind of how I am with the whiskey. It was like, man, I don't know, but it sure is good.
Maybe we have to change our titles to whiskey appreciators.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. I appreciate it.
There you go.
But it's got such a great a great way that the flavors kind of dance on the palate, and you get the minerality on the finish, but the cinnamon and that warm heat just kind of comes in from the very beginning. It's I don't know, Ian, what's your take on this?
I'm for it.
Whiskey good?
Whiskey good. No, I love this. This has that same minerality that the last one had, but I just can't get over where the heat is on this. Right at the middle of the palate, and just sits there on the tongue, and in a very pleasant way.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not a like smooth. It's it's right there on the tongue, and
it's not Jaeger.
Like, it's like when you have something that's got a little spice or a little cinnamon spice or something, and it just leaves that right there in the middle of the tongue. It's
Now,
very good.
this you said is coming out in about a month from now. And what would a bottle like this be likely to retail for?
Right around $50.
Wow. That's pretty awesome.
This is the start of a collection.
Yeah. How many does he have? Thousands?
He has thousands of bottles.
Wow. Well, Ian, if anybody I know can hope to catch up, it would be you.
Well, I don't have that many. You know what the problem with my collection is?
Yeah?
I drink all of my whiskeys.
Yeah, see,
I don't have any unopened.
That keeps it from collecting.
And if it is unopened, it's not because I'm collecting, it's because I haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, and you will. Well, this is good. I will definitely be adding some of this to my collection once it is out. It's fantastic. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We will be back. Drinking news is on the way in a segment or two, and also in the next segment we're going to be getting into this list of the top cigars for under $10 from Cigar Aficionado. Plus, we have more whiskey to taste, and coming up next, the Lil Beaver. I've finally just given in. I'm just going to say Lil. I didn't, for a long time, I really resisted the LIL word, but because there's like,
Lil Wayne.
84 rappers and music artists that are Lil one thing or another. But if they really want to be Lil, I'll let them be Lil. And Lil Beaver Brewery has Wainbows, the Hazy Pale Ale. We'll be tasting that next on Smoking and Toasting. We'll be right back. Lil. I just don't get it. Why would you want to be Lil? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Smoking and Toasting. It's the program that is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com, and we want to encourage you to support them. They have great products, first of all, but secondly, they're a supporter of the show. So if they support us, we would appreciate you supporting them and making sure they know that you appreciate them doing that, because after all, somebody has to pay for these beers.
That's true. This is true.
I'm just saying. So, great article in Cigar Aficionado. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I place a little more faith in their reviews than others, but I do like the way they do their reviews because they They take the bands off the cigars. They buy them. They don't get them sent to them, by companies looking for promotion. They buy them at retailers, and they take the bands off, and they have their team, smoke several samples of the same one and give a rating number. And all of the cigars on this list today are under $10 suggested retail price, and all of them scored a 91 or above when they were reviewed this last year in
awesome.
Cigar Aficionado. So these are all big winners. And we start with the Oliva Serie V Double Robusto.
Love those.
By the way, speaking of Oliva, Trenton from Oliva will be on the show in about a week.
Excited.
So we're super excited about that. That's going to be awesome. So this one scored 91 points. It lists at $9.10, and the Serie V or Serie 5 is the original blockbuster smoke from Oliva
And
Cigars.
always a great price, too.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of the things that I love about Oliva. Their cigars are not like priced into the super premium heavens.
Yeah.
And then they came out with a budget line, which is the Gilberto Oliva series, and those are really good, and they're even less.
Yep.
So I recommend them highly. But yeah, the Serie V, pretty good. Pretty darn good. The Macanudo Inspirado Green Toro from the Dominican Republic also comes in at 91 on Cigar Aficionado's ratings list. It retails for $7.49. The Inspirado brand has expanded into different lines and blends over the years, and the Inspirado Green marked the first time that they used a Brazilian Arapicara wrapper for
Wait,
the
a Brazilian.
brand.
How many is that?
What do you mean?
A
How many what?
Brazilian. Is that more than 1 million?
Oh, I think it is a Brazilian. Yeah, a Brazilian I think is more than 1 million. It's a full-bodied cigar. So I often avoid Macanudos because they're generally a lighter-bodied cigar, and I generally want something with a little more oomph to it. But you may remember I reviewed the Inspirado Red on the show in this last year, and it was just fantastic. So I have not had the Inspirado Green, but I may have to try it after this.
Macanudo makes great cigars. They're off my radar for the same reason, really, is they're always there, and I always want to try stuff that's a little bit bigger generally. But
what's really interesting about this Inspirado Green Toro that made this list is Cigar Aficionado goes on to say in their description that this Toro is the most powerful smoke on the list. The one that's the fullest of the entire list is a Macanudo.
Wow.
I would not have expected that.
Okay.
Right? Alec and Bradley's Kintsugi Corona Gorda from Honduras scored 91 points. It's $7.25. You may remember I smoked one of these and talked about it on the show a few months back. I liked the Kintsugi very much. It's inspired by an ancient Japanese art form where broken pottery is repaired with gold or silver to enhance its beauty. And it's from the sons of Alan Rubin, who's the owner of Alec Bradley Cigars. Honduran wrapper, 2 binders. One from Honduras, one from Nicaragua, and fillers from Honduras and Nicaragua. And I remember liking it very much.
My wife would appreciate the naming on that one.
Oh, yeah. The Kintsugi.
Yeah.
Now, the next one is a Vega Fina 1998. Now, I've had Vega Finas before. I kind of have a tendency to put them in the Macanudo or the sort of lighter Romeo and Julieta category. But this one is the 1998 VF52. It's $9.30. It's from the Dominican Republic. It scored a 92. And here's what they say. The milder Vega Fina brand has been popular in the European markets for many years, generally due to its competitive price point. But it was originally a European exclusive. This is a stronger line. The Vega Fina 1998 was made available in the U.S. market last fall. An Ecuadorian Havana wrapper, Indonesian binder, and fillers from the DR, Nicaragua, and Colombia. And they liked this, gave it 92 points. So, not bad.
That's pretty good.
The Romeo and Julieta Reserva Real Puerto Real. It's from the Dominican. It's got 92 points on the scale. It's $8.81. And it's both the longest and thinnest smoke on the list, they say, cloaked in a light Ecuador Connecticut wrapper. It is a medium-bodied smoke bursting with notes of honey, assorted nuts, and red pepper spice. Then we have the Nat Ciccio, or Cico, C-I-C-C-O. I don't know how to pronounce that. Do you? the Nat Cico,
Yeah,
CCO.
something like Cico, I think.
It's the Casino Real Double Toro. It's a Nicaraguan cigar. 92 points, $5.79, least expensive one so far. It's made with a wrapper the color of milk chocolate. It's a grande and has the distinction of not only being the biggest cigar on this list of 10, but also the most affordable. The only one with a price less than $6. It scored 92 points. So Nat Cico, CICCO, Casino Real Double Toro. The Cloud Hopper from Warped Cigars, the Cloud Hopper number 53 at $6.95, also scored 92 points. It's a Nicaraguan Puro, chock full of sweet and nutty notes of gingerbread, fudge, and baking spices.
That sounds good.
A couple more. The Charter Oak Habano Lonsdale, a Nicaraguan cigar at 92 points, $6. An offshoot of Foundation Cigars' original Charter Oak brand. And it is one that is made by some guy named A.J. Fernandez. I don't know.
I've had some of the Charter Oak.
I don't know what he's doing on this list.
Yeah,
right. The Arturo Fuente Hemingway short story from the Dominican Republic, scoring a 92 and weighing in at $7.35. Obviously, this cigar has been around for decades.
That's one of the cigars that got me into smoking cigars.
Consistently superb and wrapped in a Cameroon wrapper. One more, the Herrera Esteli Habano Lonsdale Deluxe. It is a Nicaraguan cigar made at the La Gran Fabrica factory in Esteli, Nicaragua, and it was blended by and named after Willie Herrera, the master blender for Herrera Esteli. 93 points, $9.28, and it says a medium to full-bodied smoke full of leather, walnut, molasses, cookie, and cocoa. That sounds delicious.
I'm going to have to get one of those.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. So there's your 10 under 10. You can see the full list on Cigar Aficionado's website. And that was fun. I enjoy sharing those lists. It's absolutely fun. So, Ian, this is Wainbows. Talk to me.
So, Wainbows, I expected actually a bigger... I expected a bigger everything out of this, and it's pleasantly light.
It is fairly light.
And crisp and delicious. It's well-balanced. It's got a lot of carbonation, but it kind of works with it.
I started to say it's a little too carbonated, and then I thought, no, you know what? It actually kind of works with this.
It's Citra, Cascade, and Mosaic hops, but the balance of them, it's not like a biting into a grapefruit by the peel. It's actually pretty gentle overall. It smells a lot hoppier than what comes across the palate.
Well, you're right about that. On the nose, it's very hoppy.
So it was kind of like my first sip of this. After I nosed it, my first sip of this was a little shocking in that it wasn't as big as I was expecting.
Right, absolutely.
You see that hazy name and you're expecting something that's that big.
I expect kind of orange juice.
Right, yeah.
Right, and very thick in terms of the mouthfeel. And this is a thinner, more almost like a lager kind of a mouthfeel.
Yeah, light and crisp.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like it. I think it's very good. Wainbows. And did we show the can?
Yeah, this is
by the way?
definitely on the lighter side of things. Yeah, the can has this kind of purple and black backdrop of some paisley-looking things, but on the front has a glass with the Wainbows coming out from it.
Very nice. Well, there's so much experimentation going on in the pale ale and the IPA section right now. So it's nice when somebody gets one that isn't just here's a hoppy, hazy beer.
This is
but they do a nice.
This is
nice
well
balance.
crafted. This is well balanced, and that's you know how I am with IPAs. If it's not balanced, I don't have a whole lot of use for it. This is well balanced.
I'm not sure what classifies this as a pale ale. It doesn't actually say India Pale Ale. So I don't know.
They say hazy pale ale. This is
I
like
don't know
the
where
light
you
side
cross
of an
over
IPA.
into.
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
That gray line is probably fuzzy on both sides.
Well, yeah,
pretty
because
wide,
to me, if you get a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, that tastes like an IPA to me. Like it doesn't taste different from the sort of classic IPA flavor profile.
Yeah, well, that's like the distinction between a cream ale and a blonde ale. That's just like on the palate.
Right.
I just don't know a whole lot.
What did the brewery feel like calling it that day?
Exactly. And maybe it's a good marketing thing to not be just another IPA because there's so many of them.
Well, we have a summer sessionable stout.
Right. So it's all about things that you might not expect.
And a sessionable hazy.
Yeah.
And a
We got a
sessionable
theme
hazy.
today.
Well,
right?
I think
killing it.
though that once we get to our final beer, it will not be quite so
I don't know what the
sessionable.
ABV on this one is, though. It doesn't have it on the label at all.
I think I looked it up, and I want to say that it is 7.5.
Yeah.
So.
If it's 7.5, it's surprising.
Yeah, I believe that's right. So well, let's talk whiskey. Let's go back and talk Ironroot. We've, of course, had the Promethean. We know we love that. We had this new collaborative project that's coming out. Tell me the name of that one again.
It's called Saints Alley.
Saints Alley. All right. And that is coming out in about a month. So now we're going to try something that is more of a limited release, correct?
This is going to be more of a limited release. It's a project that we did. Again, I guess this is kind of the year of collaborations for us. And so this is another one of those.
Okay.
So this is something that we did with the Tups Brewery up in McKinney, Texas. They do a lot of like the really intense double IPA, triple IPA.
We've had some Tups on the show before.
And so they're about 40 miles from the distillery. And so they actually brought one of their mash bills that they actually brewed at their site. Again, sans hops, so no hops. Didn't add any yeast. We just had sugar water, and we transferred transferred that up to the distillery, added our yeast, fermented it, distilled it at our distillery, and then distilled it into a whiskey.
And so is that where this came from, right?
For a lot of people listening, if you're not familiar with distilling / brewing, it all kind of starts the same.
Very
You
much.
know, you're basically you're gonna take a bunch of malt and you're gonna crack it, and then you're gonna heat it up to a specific temperature and hold it there for a while to extract the sugars, and then you have what's called wort, and that's where all of this starts.
Exactly.
Adam, you want to pass yours over, and I'll get you a little of this
So this
collaboration.
is going to be the first thing anyone's tasted from us that's not mostly corn. So this is going to be
Interesting.
This is the malt bill
Yeah.
that you were talking
so
about
it's
earlier.
70% malt, 30% wheat. So it's
Super interesting.
also something super crazy, not
So-
very common.
So I was going to say we're expecting a very different flavor profile, man.
Oh yeah, and this is also aged in new oak, so it's not going to be like a Scotch at all, but it's going to be kind of its own kind of weird, unique thing.
By definition, it is a single malt.
Correct.
Well, it's not because it's not entirely 100% malt, so it's a,
So it
it's
would
a
have to
malt
be.
whiskey.
But I thought it was malt was just had to be the bulk of the mash bill.
I wouldn't call it a malt
For
whiskey.
Scottish rules, it has to be 100%.
okay.
Now the U.S. rules, we're kind of chaos on the rules when it comes to
Interesting.
malt.
Interesting.
But for us, I guess this technically would be malt whiskey under the U.S. rules, but would not qualify as a single malt under Scottish rules.
So on the nose, this is my favorite so far. Just really love what this gives you. Just a real sort of a bourbon richness to the nose.
It's also 4 years old too, so
Okay.
It has a little bit of a maple syrupy kind of thing on the nose.
Yeah, on the palate, it is more like a single malt Scotch, though.
very much.
You know, from the nose, I got more of that bourbony vibe, but once you actually taste it,
The malt shines
yes,
through.
it really does. It kind of reminds you of some of the single malt things that I love so
This
much.
is really, really good.
It really is. Like, it's just spectacular. So, say the name of the brewery again that you collaborated with.
Tups.
Tups, that's
So
right. That's right.
This will come out when they're actually going to be opening up a brand new brewery in McKinney, just off of downtown. I think they're about to break ground on it from what I hear. And so this will be kind of when they open up their brand new facility, kind of released in conjunction with that.
So, but they aren't. Will they sell this at their brewery as well?
We we might transfer a few barrels down there because they're talking about having a small distillery at the location, so we might actually send it down there so they have it there
Fun.
too.
This makes me think of breakfast cereal.
You know,
Doesn't it?
yes, it really does. Almost like
breakfast cereal,
Cookie Jarvis or whatever that stuff was. You remember it? What was Cookie Jarvis's cereal? Was I guess it was like cookies and cream or something. Cookie Crisp.
Cookie
Something?
Crisp.
Is
Cookie
that what it
Crisp.
was?
Yeah, that's
It
what it
reminds
was.
me a little of that. That was a good cereal. I don't think it had a single nutrient in it, but it was delicious.
Neither does this.
What was I remember watching some show a while back, and there was some funny thing about like a new cereal coming out, and they're like, why don't they just call it Sugary Sugar or something like that?
Well, I don't know. This is you say this has no nutrients, but is malt not a nutrient?
This has
does it not
such an
count?
interesting,
we're done with it.
such an interesting aftertaste.
Oh, it's so good though.
And the heat is further back in the palate. Like it's the same kind of heat that we had in the last one, but it's moved back towards the back of the palate. So we've gone through this strange progression today, starting with the Promethean, where there's almost no heat. Like that thing that just washes down like ridiculous. And then the second one we tried, the heat was right in the middle of it. Like it's not ashamed to be a little bit hot. And then this one, the heat is towards the back of the palate.
And this one's 124 proof.
Well,
this one has still some of that minerality to it.
all of them have really had a nice minerality.
But that malt roundness is so good. And there's a little bit of spice in there, like a little, almost like a baking spice kind of thing going on.
And you said new oak barrels you finished
Right, so
this
you're
in?
seeing that spice coming from that tannin side of everything, the tannin from the oak.
Man, this is one of those, some whiskeys you're like, okay, that's really good. You're savoring the flavor. This one, you do that, and then it says, take another drink. What I like to call the Doritos effect,
This does not have as much like vanilla flavors and things that I would expect.
And that's usually something I'm almost
But I guess the
looking
new
for.
oak is because
But
of that.
I
Like
re-
usually
I
you get
really
the
like
vanilla
this.
and the things like that when you have a charred oak barrel, right?
Exactly, and this it is charred, but it's gonna be very low
Very
char.
low
So
char.
you're looking char 1, some sort of heavy toast profile to the barrel. So the vanillin extraction on this guy is actually fairly low, so that you're not gonna get that big vanilla bomb out of these particular barrels.
This is a little more cinnamon toast crunch.
Thinking about this with one of those Perdomo champagne cigars.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? The ones that come
yeah.
in the yellow wrapper. Oh, it would be so good.
That would be fantastic.
So yeah, you guys are the first. This is the first public tasting of this particular whiskey.
Wow.
So
Well, we are honored and we like it.
Look, Ma, I made it big.
Yeah. No, seriously, this I think this may be my favorite of the batch so far.
So good.
We got one more to try, but we will get to that. Not only will we get to that, by the way, we will get to one more beer, and we will get to drinking news, which somehow, against all odds, has become one of the most popular features of the program. But then again, when you have 5
It's the
listeners,
song.
only 3 of them have to like it for it to be one of the most popular thing. And I think you're right. I think it's the song. So drinking news is next, and we'll do some more tasting. I'm excited for whatever you've saved for last, because we've been doing awfully well here in the first few tastings. Smoking and toasting. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Our radio program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by the fine folks at mycigarshirts.com. Great shirts for cigar lovers on the web, mycigarshirts.com, because...
Cigars.
Yes, and Ian, I think you know... Oh, now, Robert, I'm going to ask you to do something special for us here. When I cue you, I would like for you to say, I had to take my gator to the vet. Can you do that?
had to take my gator to the vet.
All right, perfect. All right, you ready? It's time for drinking news.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When I asked about his absent arm, he said,
I had to take my gator to the vet.
drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. Can you imagine the vet, like when you come in with an alligator
Oh, boy.
and a missing arm?
Hey, I grew up in Liberty. I've actually had a gator in the yard.
Okay, I believe it. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, and in Florida, which is often the location of many of our drinking news stories, gators are pretty common. They'll show up in your swimming pool. You know, that just wherever you are, a gator is not far away.
No.
It's a heck of a way to ruin a weekend.
It really is. It really is. Drinking news, as we like to remind you folks, these are stories that we believe to be true. We've gotten them from at least semi-reputable sources. They are not always about drinking, although they are sometimes. but they are generally best enjoyed when you've been drinking. And if you're drinking some of this, what is this one called again?
It's called we don't have an official name for it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
called the Tubbs Collaboration.
The Tubbs Collaboration. Okay, so this will have a name by the time it comes out.
It's called Yummy.
It's called Yummy. Anyway,
You know,
these are best
some
enjoyed when
whiskeys-
you are drinking.
Some whiskeys are called Rot Gut. This one's called Yummy Tummy.
Yeah, Yummy Tummy. I like it. All right, drinking news, ladies and gentlemen. A Florida man. You always love it when the story starts with that, right?
I've got a story and I swear it's true. So now it's time.
Drinking news.
A Florida man ended up in jail after his dashboard camera showed police more than he intended. Xavier Moran, who was 25 years old, was involved in a crash on April 5th. And when he told the sheriff's deputy that he'd been cut off by another vehicle, he said he could prove it with his dashboard camera, that he was not at fault in this accident. Somebody had cut him off. This is all according to the Palm Beach Post. So he then signed a consent waiver for the police to search the camera footage. But when the Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy reviewed the footage, they saw a little more than Moran should have shown them. Authorities say the video showed Moran parking outside a Sally's beauty supply store, taking a baseball bat from his trunk and using it to break in the glass door of the store and rob it.
Oh, boy.
The icing on the cake here is that records show that 3 days prior to this incident, Mr. Moran was arrested for threatening to shoot his brother with an assault rifle and pistol. All of this proves with virtual certainty that Florida is pretty much another country. And that's your drinking news.
Drinking news. That was time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. I want you to know, by the way, that when I'm getting things ready for the show, I usually do the show notes like a day or two before the show, and I'll choose some beers, a spirit if we don't have a spirit guest on. I'll look and research news and new information from cigars and spirits and the world of craft beer. But the thing that takes me the longest is tracking down the drinking news story.
I want you to know, because I appreciate the amount of effort that you put into all that you do. and so for my preparation for this show,
right, because you did the prep for last week, right?
Well, no, let's exclude last week, but
Okay.
for every show generally where you end up doing all this prep work, my preparation and my hard work and dedication involves doing absolutely none of that because I want my reactions to be pure and true.
And
So
indeed they
I
are.
work really, really hard
Right.
at paying not a lick of attention to any kind of drinking news
That's good to know.
or anything like that.
Well, that's good to know. In the meantime, I'll eventually run dry, no pun intended, on drinking news stories, because while there are plenty of stories of people doing something stupid, I like to at least find something that I think will make you laugh. Because if you laugh, I feel the drinking news has been a success, right?
Yeah. I revisited recently, by the way, the debut of the drinking news song happened to coincide with the story about the man who grew a penis on his arm.
Oh, that was one of the greatest drinking news stories ever.
I missed that episode.
Oh, it's worth revisiting.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. It was.
It was.
That's one of the
I
greatest
think it
drinking news
was like
stories ever.
episode 210 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
And it
but-
really set a far too high of a bar for drinking news stories, I will say, because those just don't come along every day.
It's all downhill from
Yeah,
there.
oh yeah.
Well, but so I'll go on, the internet, and I'll Google Florida man, and you get stuff like, Florida man, beats his wife with a shotgun. It's like, come on, that's not a good drinking
That's
news
not
story,
drinking news.
right? Yeah, drinking news stories needs to have some kind of comedic, some sort of crooks or stupid kind of a element to it. So, anyway, I do think I have one for next week, and it involves a Danish journalist who had sex during an on-air interview.
Nice.
Ooh,
I'll just give you that little teaser right
that's a
now.
bold strategy.
Thanks to Mary for tracking down next week's drinking news. Oh, speaking of tracking things down, I haven't given you the beer yet.
I haven't seen anything.
Let me pull it out of here because let me tell you, this is what we call a thing of beauty.
Oh. For those of you who are only listening, Josh, there is actually a beam of sunlight coming down from the sky to light this bottle
I appreciate it. And by the way, I don't know if there's really any logic to why a brewer will put a champagne-style cork and the little cage element onto a bottle, but something about it just says you're in for something special, doesn't it?
I mean, that is a lot of extra effort.
Right,
to
absolutely.
put a
And it's
bottle of
more
beer together.
expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, they could have just capped that or done the wax thing, but no,
Ugh, the
there's
wax.
something.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah, the wax thing drives me a little nuts, I have to say. We get great sound effects out of this, though.
Almost. Close.
Just it's
about.
coming. Yeah, and
It's like super long cord.
ooh,
There it was.
that was a
There.
nice one.
That's
It wasn't
look how
loud.
long that is, though.
Yeah, it wasn't loud, but it was
Just keep
extra
going.
special. So
Yeah, that was a fun pop.
This one's
So-
called Primordial Noir.
Primordial Noir, right?
Primordial Noir.
And now, so like film noir is one of my favorite things in terms of entertainment. Like I love those old, black and white detective type noir movies. So Primordial Noir, I mean, that's just loaded with possibility, But that's what these guys are all about. We've had Cascade Brewing's stuff. They're out of Portland, Oregon. We've had their stuff on the show before, and it has always been
I
exceptional.
love already that there's like no carbonation in this whatsoever.
And this is a bourbon barrel Imperial Red Ale, and I'll let you read the rest of it off of the label,
Like,
Ian.
I'm
but
going to pour this as hard as I can pour it, and I want to show you just how not carbonated that is.
you can do a Chris Hart pour and not get carbonation on this. Wow, look at that.
like
Chris Hart is known for the hard
it's a
pour
little,
when it
it's a
comes
little
to beers.
syrupy.
Yeah.
That
All right,
does
so
not
Ian,
surprise
what
me
is
whatsoever.
what is the bottle tell us?
Bourbon barrel aged Imperial Red Ale with cherries and spices.
Mm.
Primordial Noir is a blend of Imperial Red Ale ales aged in bourbon and wine barrels for up to 2 years, and with Northwest grown big cherries and spice. Bing cherries.
Bing
and
cherries,
spices.
Yeah.
A concentrated precursor to our Sang Noir project, Primordial Noir features a more robust bourbon and cherry aroma with notes of roast malt, molasses, and baking spices. I'm assuming, and I haven't tried this yet, that this is going to go amazing with that last whiskey that we just
Well,
had.
yeah, I'm guessing so. Now, I will say this is a 2017. That's when it was bottled. So this has been resting for a while. And as you recall, Ian, we've occasionally had some things on the show that have been resting for a little too long, and
We have.
they've not worked out all that well.
I have a little story about that. Further on this label, our distinctive barrel-aged sour ales offer a complex array of flavors derived from the Northwest-grown ingredients. A pioneer in the sour beer renaissance since 2006 and the proud innovator of Northwest Sour Ale, we are, by nature, the definition of an artisanal brewing. We are not bound by stylistic guidelines, just our own imagination and the ingredients we can access. Pat yourselves on the back, guys. That was awesome. I haven't tried it yet. How is it?
I think you should.
The nose reminds
Completely-
me.
It smells like wine.
Completely unexpected, although
It smells like a port wine.
it's gonna continue in what you're saying. Then you
Tastes
may
exactly-
be expecting it more than I was.
I mean, it's true sour ale on that, but I mean, the nose reminds me again. If you've ever had Bing cherries, like that was my mom used. Again, she's from Montana, so they have those like Bing right next to Washington State, and it hits that right on the head.
This is fantastic.
Yeah,
is
it is.
sour.
It is as much like a sour wine as you could get and still be a beer. I think.
Yeah, 100%.
This leaves you salivating like ridiculously.
Yes, absolutely. It's
get that-
it's Pavlovian. It's
Like imagine the amount of salivation going on right now. If you had a row of like those push-in gold teeth right now, what the sounds you would be making would be epic.
You get that.
Have you ever sat next to somebody that had those in, by the way?
no, but you know what? I'd like to just right now. Let's just extend an open invitation to Paul Wall
Hell
to come
yeah.
on the show, because first of all, he's a fascinating dude and a great rapper, and secondly, he lives right here in our hometown. So, Paul, if you're out there, we'd love to have you come on, put one of your grills in, and let's see how that impacts the tasting process. Wouldn't that be awesome?
The metallic.
That would be amazing.
I mean, maybe if he did copper, you could pull out some sulfur out of stuff. I mean, it'd be interesting.
This has a lot going on, but it's you know what I can't help but but parallel this to wine. This is so
It
wine-like.
very much is, yes. It's,
Wow.
But, you know, how wine can be a bit subtle, this is not subtle at all.
No.
But it
It
has
is
that
right in your face.
It has that kind of that dark, rich wine kind of funk to it.
And as I said, you get that light vinegar note that goes to it that just
Yes.
kind of cleans everything out of your palate and just makes it so you can go back for more.
My
But,
gosh.
yeah, Ian, you mentioned it though. You like after you swallow this, wait a second, and you just salivate for the next drink.
Yeah, it's huge. This is absolutely wonderful.
I mean, if you love sour beers, this is a must-have.
And
Yeah,
I will say,
my friend Ralph right now is kind of like going, something has changed in the.
now I will say I'm a little burned out on a lot of the sours, to be honest. Like I like them, but it seems like there's been a lot of them, and so this though is completely to me in another league from a lot of the sours. This isn't just a. This is a sour that just makes you go, you know.
Wiki Brian, by the way, is calling the way they close this bottle corked and caged. I guess that's the terms.
That works for me.
Wiki Brian says, "Hi, by the way, I saw him the other night."
Oh.
And back to my story.
Yes, you were
So
going to tell a
past
story.
prime age beers. So my buddy Joel
Yeah,
has moved. He had a walk-in cooler,
love that.
and
By the way, how do you get a walk-in cooler in your house?
he
That's
had it
awesome.
in his garage.
Okay.
But that's close enough to the house.
Yeah,
You
for
wait
sure.
for a restaurant to close down,
You
buy
buy
it
the
from-
cooler. I
His
love it.
walk-in cooler was almost the size of this room.
I'm so envious right now. So jealous.
He has hundreds of beers in there, so he cleared them out, but a lot of them are past prime. Like we had a get
You had
together.
a past prime get together.
We had a get together at his house, and he just randomly pulled a bunch of bottles, and some of them, not so good. Some of them were great. But also, to further the story, last week we talked about Toscano cigars, and I mentioned which end do I like the cigar by, and she said, well, it doesn't matter. It's the same. Right? And she said, and a lot of people were, when there was a shortage of them, a lot of people would cut them right down the middle. So that was brought up at our brew club meeting, and so I cut that cigar in half and shared half of it with him.
Ah, nice. Well,
And it smoked way longer than it should have because it's very strange on those
I know
cigars.
it is very strange how long those cigars smoke.
So
You're right.
Toscano cigars are the ugliest cigars in existence. They're hideous.
like old sausages.
So they
make
literally
Clint Eastwood
are what
cigars
Clint
look
Eastwood
like.
smoked
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
movies. That's the exact cigar. But they're ugly. I mean, they're wrapped ugly. And they're not bad. They're a pretty good cigar,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. Although, I'd be careful dropping them into your humidor. I noticed that they, because I put some, they gave us a nice handful of those. I took them home and put them in the humidor, and I noticed when I open the humidor now, that's all I can smell. So I don't know if I want my other cigars in there taking on that aroma. I may want to
Glad
keep
you
that
said that. I'll
separate.
drop that. I have a second humidor that I put
Yeah, maybe a second humidor.
anything that has any kind of
Right.
Pungency.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, or like if you have some of those like Kentucky Fire
Mulatts, yeah,
Fjords or
right.
something like that. Yeah.
That's
Sometimes
the
they're-
humidor that those go
They're
into.
best kept separate. Yes, absolutely. So this is a delightful beer. It's not.
I like how funky it is.
It's
so good.
not an inexpensive
Vinegary,
beer.
funky.
But I can tell you,
it.
it's worth it. Like this is one. If you have to splurge a little to buy a bottle of what these guys do,
What does a bottle of
it
this
is
go
so-
for? Do you
I want
remember?
to say that was about $34. So that's a little pricey.
But
for
this is kind of champagne.
but I'm
like,
gonna
in
tell
the-
you, it's
in
worth
the,
it.
like,
Yeah.
Look at how much we're enjoying it, and it doesn't.
Right.
You don't want to drink a whole bottle of this yourself.
And what you don't
Like
want
you
to
might
do,
actually
though,
turn inside out from puckering, but
It is a sour beer for sure.
what you don't want to do though is to buy a bottle of beer that is, north of $15 or $16, and have it just be okay.
Yeah.
Like you want that beer to be exceptional, and this one is
the cherry flavor left on your lips
It
is
just sits there.
yeah, it's so
And it's
good.
and
those,
that's
like,
exactly what you want it to do.
beautiful Northeast cherries. Just, oh man.
Ian, I'm afraid I may have to have a little more of that.
Yeah, I already poured myself a little bit. So I
Yeah,
get
see,
where
that's
you're
the
coming
thing.
from.
When you do the pouring, you're on the other side of the table here.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah, this
So-
one. This is one of those special things. You imagine having this with a good cherry pie.
Oh, man. I want a cherry pie now after having this. So Robert Likarish is here. Robert is with Ironroot Distilling. And obviously, we're pretty unabashed fans from having your products, both when we've been out to see you at some of the different conventions and shows and stuff, but also from having you on the show before here. So it's been a real treat.
This is your third time.
Yeah, it's been a real treat, though, getting to sample your new things.
Yeah, watch out, Chris Hart. I'm coming for you.
Oh, yeah. So,
He
speaking
knows.
of, by the way, one of our other most frequent guests, who was our guest host last week, Alan Denny. Did Alan have a good time? Did he enjoy himself?
I
on
hadn't
the
talked
show?
to him since then.
Okay, we need to.
I need to give him a call.
I mean,
Yeah.
Chris did brag that he's surpassed Denny way more times now. So that was
well, yeah.
last time I talked to Chris. So
Well, that's going to be
Alan,
interesting because
get on it.
yeah, well, for a while those guys were actually in this sort of tight competition about it, and that was when we, got the comment on our reviews on Apple Podcasts that nobody cares about those guys. So ever since then, that's been their sort of like sub headline. It's like Chris Hart, who nobody cares about, right? But anyway, yes, those guys are our buddies. We love having them on, and we always like to plug Chris's show, the Whiskey Pete.
The friends that
Whiskey
you
Neat
make in this
podcast.
industry are priceless.
It's fun.
Do you think it's because of the drinking? Do you think that's why?
I think
Because we
doesn't hurt.
share this love. No, we share this love of great spirits and great beers and stuff. Like that's a deeper bond than some other types of things.
I like to joke. Have you been around Chris when you're not drinking? I mean, it's
No, and I'm not sure I would want to. But when you're drinking, he's really fun to be around.
there's a lot of ginger there. That's all I'm saying. And this comes from a redhead.
Okay,
I'm waiting for that phone call.
We have one more, and let's hope if you do record it, we'll play it back on the show. So we have one more to try here. Now, you have kind of blown us away with these previous ones. What could possibly be left in the tank here?
So this is a special release. It's coming out this year.
I just want to point out that I love the hot sauce bottles that you just pulled the little
Yes.
What do they call
the
that?
Little squirty top.
little dropper top.
Because everybody else only gets a little tiny bit. That's
We feel special.
So this is a product that's going to be called Apotheosis. So we have all sorts of fun names. And
Well, the good news is you didn't go for a really, sort of cheeky, highfalutin
you should
word.
go
Yeah.
for something that might be hard to spell.
Yeah, right.
yeah, but my brother makes sure I can't spell it because then he knows that's the right word to use. So.
Yeah, when I think of I think there was a big techno record called Apotheosis. That's what I think of. But okay, let's do it.
So this is going to be our Harbinger bourbon that was 3 years old.
I like it
Awesome.
already.
Yeah, I was going to say you're starting out good here.
And then we spent the last year and a half in this particular one is in what's called a Pinot de Charente cask. So Pinot de Charente is something they make in cognac because I like to joke that they don't make very good table wine. So instead they make what they call Pinot. It's spelled different than like Pinot Noir.
Right.
So they actually take cognac and they back blend it with fresh pressed grape juice. They fortify it to 20% alcohol and they barrel age that for 10 years. And they serve that before and after dinner. It's like your aperitif, digestif. But it's essentially like a port or a sherry, but there's no wine involved. It's the same sort of thing.
It sounds like something that Docs would know about, doesn't it?
Doc's got many bottles of this, I can promise you.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
And again, speaking of Docs, they were kind enough a few years ago to actually have us out to France and put us up in France where we got to go out there and distill in cognac because of Docs. And that's where I fell in love with Pinot.
He's that guy,
Yeah.
He really is.
So when we came back, we brought back barrels of Pinot with us, and that's when we started making this particular product.
That is so cool. I love it.
Okay, this
Yeah.
is ridiculous.
This
Yeah.
is dessert.
This is meaty and huge on the palate. Like
I'm just
when I say
loving the
meaty, I don't
nose.
mean it tastes like meat. I mean it's big. Like
Viscous.
it is so round on the palate. It's just enormous. And like it doesn't go away too after you swallow. It's
No, it
still
sure
there.
doesn't.
It's yes. Like finishing dinner with this. That's that's
Is
a little
there
fantasy
such
right
a
there.
thing as a dessert whiskey?
100%.
Really? Okay.
I mean, their whiskey goes with every course of the meal. That's the fun part about it.
And again, so we've gone with the heat on this, which is so far back that it actually comes back a little bit and gives you this great little hug.
Mm-hmm.
And this
Right.
is
It's a
over
return.
130 proof. This guy's 132 proof. It's a heavy hitter.
It's like Voodoo Child, slight return.
this is yeah. Also, you can sanitize with it.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's gonna clean anything out for sure.
Holy moly, that's good.
I
though.
am feeling thoroughly sanitized by this. This is delicious. It's so
There's chocolate. There's
there's
just wonderful.
there's like an orange peel, like an orange
Yes.
zest going on in there. That's like you know those orange slices with the with the chocolate covering
my
them
grandma
kind of thing.
my grandma used to love
yeah,
those.
my
when
mom
she was
loves those.
alive,
Yeah,
Chocolate covered oranges. Oh yeah, that's.
that's what I meant to say. Thank you.
Oh no, I mean that's my mom. She.
How did I mess that up?
My mom's crazy. She drinks port like after dinner for fun, and she'll drink it with chocolate that's got orange peel in it.
Yeah.
And that's what this reminds me of. It's
That's
got that
yeah.
chocolate
So
and
that's
orange
exactly
zest, yeah.
this is huge like that with a little cinnamon
just
back there with a little,
fantastic.
and then it still has that super clean mineral water going on the back end of it.
You know what I love about this show is in one segment we can go from the
Samples.
ridiculousness of drinking news to the amazingness of this in one segment. And we had the Primordial Noir in the middle of it, which, by the way, going back to it now,
Man, this one and the 70% malt, that's tough. I love the orange in this though. It's so
wow, yeah.
it's a little almost exotic how orange it is.
It's kind of like your children. You don't want to pick a favorite. You know, you just want to love them all where they're
And
at.
is this going to be released?
So this year will be distillery only, but we got a bunch of casks. Again, speaking of docks, we just got a bunch of barrels from Pierre Ferrand. Again, we're doing a barrel exchange, so we actually sent them a bunch of Harbinger barrels that they're going to be finishing some spirits in. So there's actually going to be a Pierre Ferrand release, well, I guess, on their rum side that are finished in our casks. And
Lovely.
then we got a bunch of their barrels to finish our stuff in. So you will actually see a bunch of rum cask, cognac cask, and then we're going to be doing a number of Pinot de Charente releases as well.
Awesome.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is
This
so
is coming
fun.
everywhere.
Is that?
So-
How great is that? Well, this is just fantastic. I mean, not that anything hasn't been, but it's just more. What I love about this whole process is people crafting great things, and then people like you and I get to take those things and share them. Like it's a I don't know. Maybe it's because we've all been in lockdown for the last year. But this feeling of like community is a really wonderful, warm, and welcoming kind of thing.
This is so
when you're
good.
sharing something together like this, and you're really enjoying it together, and you're like, yeah, I'm not like just locked in my house by myself. You know what I mean?
You know, I was about to ask you if I could have some more. You're right. It's so
Now-
good.
Yeah.
Ian, have you gone back to the Primordial Noir 2017?
I have not. Mostly because I
It's
drank all
interesting.
mine.
It's interesting. Is there any more in the bottle, or are you?
Yeah, oh yeah, there's some low.
Well, it's interesting because it loses a bit of the impact of the tartness, but you can still tell that it's
Cherry,
there.
yeah.
It's just got a little more of a bourbony whiskey thing going on when you go back to it.
I feel like
Oh, it makes it boozy tart.
Yes,
It's really,
yes,
really
exactly,
interesting.
exactly.
Wow, it's still real good though. It's different
It
but
is.
good.
It's really good. Wow.
And
what
it is
fun.
it is like if you just peeled all your cherries and chewed on the skins. It's kind of like that. In the best possible, I know that's kind of a grisly way to put it, but in the best possible way. It's
No,
so
I-
good.
I'm
it's that
with you.
cherry tannin, like the
You know when you
yeah.
get when you've eaten a bunch of cherries and you have a little bit of the cherry skin stuck. Yeah.
All right, I tell you what we're going to do. As tough as this is to make a decision to do, we're going to take a break. We'll come back and we'll close up the show. If there's anything, any final thoughts you have about all this stuff that we've tried, and one thing I'll be asking you, we'll take a break first, is what this is going to retail for. So we'll reveal that and wrap up the show for number 236. Ironroot Distilling in the house coming up. Welcome back. It's It's Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are brought to you by MyCigarShirts.com. Please do check out and patronize them, MyCigarShirts.com, because...
Cigars.
Yes. All right, Ian, I'm going to blast through this list because I can't hold on to it another week. I know we only have our final short segment here.
Warm it up, Cruze.
But hop cultures... I'm about to. You didn't think I was going to get that, did you? Because that's what I was born to do. All right.
Most people aren't going to get that, but that's okay.
And probably it's best that they don't, is what I'm thinking. But, okay. All right, ready? Here we go. Hop Culture's 20 Best Breweries of 2020. We got to do this because it's about to be like the middle of the year.
All right, let's do it. Fire it up.
Our mutual friend Brewing out of Denver, Colorado. I am not familiar with them, but I want to be, and I have to plan a trip to Colorado soon. Yeast of Eden, my favorite brewery name so far. Yeast of Eden in Carmel by the Sea, California. I'm so going there. I'm going to plan a California vacation right now just so I can go to Yeast of Eden.
Yeast of Eden.
Eighth State Brewing Company in Greenville, South Carolina. And I'm skipping all the details on these because I just want to give you the list. Green Bench Brewing Company, Webb City Cellar in St. Petersburg, Florida. Other Half Brewing in Brooklyn, New York. And we've had a number of Other Half beers on the show. And by the way, they are fantastic, so I'm glad they made the list. Humble Sea Brewing Company in Santa Cruz, California. Not familiar with them, but I want to be. Two Roads Brewing out of Stratford, Connecticut. I have heard of them, but I don't think I have had a chance to sample any of their beers. Now, this one we've had, Great Notion Brewing Company out of Portland, Oregon, and we've had some of their beers, and they've been terrific. Hoof-Hearted Brewing Company.
We've had that before.
Out of Columbus, Ohio. Yeah, maybe the second best name after Yeast of Eden. Hoof-Hearted. In Doral, Florida, there's Tripping Animals Brewing Company. Nope. I don't know if that means animals that you like cause to stumble
which
and
direction
fall,
is that going?
or if it has another meaning.
That is a double entendre, sir.
But they are in there. So remember these because you may want to try these out. Try to seek out some of these beers from Fort Monroe, Virginia. Ouzel Finch Beers and Blending.
That's fun to say.
Ouzel Finch. I like the name. Yep. And finally, from San Antonio, Texas, Weathered Souls Brewing Company, which is very cool to see one of our local or area regional breweries be represented.
That here in Texas, we consider a 4.5 hour drive or a 4 hour drive local.
That's local. Yeah, that's local. It's just San Antonio. If there is a Buc-ee's in between here and there, it's local.
So my sister moved to Georgia years ago, and it used to take me from my house to her house 10 hours to get there. She called me and said, "Hey, we're moving to Lubbock." It took me 11 hours to get to Lubbock, and she was in Texas.
Yeah, so I told
going to Georgia was 4 or 5 states I went through.
When I was in my 20s, I was living in San Antonio, and I decided to move to Los Angeles. And I packed up my car, and I headed west from San Antonio to Los Angeles. The first half of the drive was Texas. The second half of the drive was all the other states in between Texas and California.
From Houston to California, the halfway point is El Paso.
El Paso, Texas.
And there's still another 30 or 40 minutes of Texas past El Paso.
That's right, which is crazy. You think, okay, I've gotten there. It's done. So, Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Promethean, as always, is fantastic, but we've loved being able to sample these new things. Run them by me again as to when people can expect to see these.
So we've got Saints Alley that's going to be dropping next month in July.
In the $50 range, you said?
Yeah, in the $50 range. We've got the Tups that's going to be dropping sometime next year, again, whenever they open.
Still untitled, but it's your collaboration with Tups, right?
So
it's called Yummy Tummy.
Yeah, Yummy Tummy malt whiskey.
Loved that, by the way.
So, and then we'll have the Pinot de Charente, the Apotheosis will drop 2 different Apotheosis this year. We've got the Pinot, and then we also have another Armagnac finish. And those are going to be right around $65, and they're going to be dropping both this year. So.
Wow! And these are all. I just have to celebrate the fact that these are all $65 or under bottles, and that's
I have to know
fantastic.
when that Apotheosis hits the market.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
buying that.
pretty
immediately.
awesome stuff.
I'll let you know.
Just pretty awesome stuff. Well, Robert, thank you for being here and for bringing such awesome new things. This has been terrific. Next time you're here, we will pop corn, and
Let's do it.
and we will look forward to it.
Look at how crazy red and cool that corn looks.
I know, it's awesome. And this corn is just like, oh, I thought
That's
it was
That's even
corn.
better
That's
corn.
That was
purple
the
corn.
one- Yeah, look at that.
Purple
Yeah.
corn.
That's so purple, it's almost like indigo. It's really awesome.
Is this the butcher's?
No, that actually is the flint corn that we use called Floriani.
Well, it's great stuff is what it is.
Yeah, it's not gonna smell like dried corn. Kind of smells like dried corn for the most part.
It's always fun to
you grind it up,
to
though?
check out. Yeah. Next week's show, Ian, we will be thrilled to welcome our old friend Trenton from Oliva Cigars.
Awesome.
We'll be smoking, we'll be drinking, and we have a location set for that. yet?
Working on location for that.
Okay, we're looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome. And then on the 17th, I will be gone once again. This time I'll really be gone. I won't be able to pod crash. So that's when you're going to be co-hosting the show with an as yet unnamed co-host.
That's when I get to talk.
Right.
I'm working on a co-host. I have one in mind
feelers
that
out?
is not confirmed yet, but I think
Okay.
it's going to be fun.
All right. Well, and we've got lots of fun things on the way beyond that. Robert, thank you again so much. You guys, please keep doing what you do because we love your experimentation. We love your collaborations. I think that's so cool. I think collaborations really, in many ways, are the future of the craft part of what we do.
I
You know?
agree. I agree.
It's just so awesome.
Is it going to be
Whether
just like the music industry where every song that comes out is this artist featuring that artist?
Yeah. It's the
And then
I
a
can
list
only
of
hope.
17
it's
songwriters
the Drinking News
for
theme
something
song.
that took one
Yeah.
keyboard.
Yeah, it's the Drinking News theme song from Ian Barry, featuring, Robert Likarish.
Robert Likarish,
right.
from,
yeah, yes.
from Ironroot Distilling.
Plink of one note on there.
Yeah, I love it. So, thank you, folks, for joining us for Smoking and Toasting this week. We are.
He has now contributed.
That's right. You get a featured. You get a featured thing. Thank you, folks, for being a part of the show this week. We appreciate it. We'll see you again next week, and until we all meet again with drinks in our hand, cheers.
Cheers.
y'all.
Oh. Yeah.
You got a toast there, buddy. Apotheosis.
Bruce Stark says new wine for old people. Pinot More. Keep it out of the bathroom.
I don't
Sunshine is so good to you.
Well, I have to recognize you guys for.
We never let that song.